الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. In Tajweed lessons, we started off with the qualities, the sifat of huruf. As I mentioned before, we need to know the makharij, the points of articulation for the letters, and then we need to know the sifat, the qualities, the attributes of each letter. So there are certain qualities which has their opposites, which have their opposites as well. So jahar and hams we covered. Hams being with the vocal cord open, the breath sound continues as you pronounce those letters, and the letters are فَحَثَّهُ شَخْصٌ sakat. So af, ah, as. The breath sound continues, not the actual vocal sound. So the breath continues with that. You can hear breathing continues with that. So ah. So this is hams. The other letters have jahar, means there's no ongoing breath sound. Sound stops. Sound continues. Even sound stops, but the breath sound doesn't continue at all. So al, for example, al. It's the sound which continues, but not the breathing with it. So today we'll cover the second group, the shidda. In the second attribute, these are the letters where the two surfaces which strike together, two surfaces, when they strike together to pronounce a silent letter. This is true for any language. Any sound which is silent, which means that it is connected with the previous letter, the sakina, the sound or the letter which is connected with the previous letter is called sakina. The one which is static hasn't got fatha dhamma kasra, rather it's connected with the previous one. So ab. So whenever you have a silent or sakin letter, the two opposite surfaces connect with each other. They strike each other. So ab, al, an, so all those letters you pronounce with the two surfaces, either to the lips or the tongue with the top of the mouth, or any two opposite surfaces which are part of that makhraj, they strike together. So if the striking is hard enough to not let any air out, any sound out, this is called shadid letter. A shadid letter is when the strike is very firm. They just clap like this and the sound stops. So here we are dealing with sound, vocal sound, not the breath sound. In the first group we were dealing with the breathing, the breath sound. Here we are talking about the sound itself. It gets stopped suddenly. So for example, you say aj. So you say ad. So the middle part of the tongue goes straight on the top. Ad. You cannot continue with the sound. Hamza. Say a silent hamza. Sakina, hamza sakina. How would you say? Ah. Ah. You cannot continue with that. Or sha. Sha. So the shadid letters, when they are pronounced with the strength, because of the degree of blockage that they have when you're pronouncing them as a silent letter. And these are 8 letters. Ajid qatin bakat. Ajidu qatin bakat. Ajid qatin bakat. Hamza, jim, dal, qaf, ta, ba, ka, ta, kaf, ta. So these are the letters that are very shadid with their pronunciation, because the makhraj stops straight away. The sound doesn't continue at all. The other letters, 15 of them out of 20, 15 letters you pronounce with rikhwa, with softness. Means the sound continues. There is softness in those letters. We'll come to that in a minute. And there is a middle category, which is tawassut or bayniya. the group which is not very shadid and not very soft, rather the actual makhraj, the two opposite surfaces of the makhraj, when you pronounce that silent letter, they close, but there is another opening for the sound to continue from. For example, when you say an, so the tip of the tongue strikes the top of the mouth, roof of the mouth, and you say an. But since the 50% makhraj of noon is through the nostril, that continues to come through the nose. So you say an, the sound continues, but not from the makhraj or the whole makhraj. Half of the makhraj is closed, half is opened. That is why this is in between. On one hand, this is shadid. On the other, there's a continuation of the sound from a different passage, different, door, back door. So that is why they are called mutawassit. So lin umar, lam, noon, ayn, mim, ra, these are the letters of tawassut, where you continue with the sound, but not from the main area, but rather from a different opening. So remember that again. Ajid, qatim, bakat are shadid letter. Lin, umar are in between the two. And rikhwa are the rest of the letters which are pronounced with softness, means they continue with their sound for a bit longer. They're not shadid. So for example, say seen. So as, here you continue with the sound as well as breath. So that is why seen has got both qualities. It is from the first category, it has hums of the breath continuing, and sound continues as well with the shidda. As, ash. Again, sheen has both qualities as well, sound as well as breath. And then lin umar, this is the middle bit. They have some sound continuing, but not from the main makhraj. Let's look at them. So for example, jim, you say ad, ad, ad. So the sound stops. But if you have to pronounce the next letter, and there's a pause, there will be a pause, because you need to bring your tongue to the neutral position to be able to pronounce the next letter. For example, if you wanted to say mujtaba, you would say mujtaba, because for mud, jim, the middle part of the tongue needs to go up to the top, and it doesn't let any continuation of the sound. But then for ta, which comes after jim, you have to use your tongue tip. So how would you do that when the tongue is already engaged with that makhraj of jim? You have to bring that tongue to the neutral position and then use the tip of the tongue to pronounce the next letter, which is ta. So how would you do? You say muttaba, 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 muttaba. There's a pause in the sound. There's no continuation. And this is considered a defect in the language. That people do not like it. When they speak, they want to speak in flow without any jerky pauses. So what Arabs did naturally is that they have created this concept, or they naturally did it, which we inferred by looking at how they are doing. Means the scholars of the past, they looked at, as a non-Arabic speaking people, they looked at that and they realized, oh, this is what they're doing, and this is why they're doing this, which is that they created this qalqala. Qalqala is that they would then bring the tongue back to its neutral position with extra sound rather than with the pause. So they would say ij, tima, muj, taba, as opposed to muj, taba, they would say muj, muj. They release the sound. They bring the tongue back to neutral position. Likewise for ba, they would say ab, ta, as opposed to ab, abtar, abtar. They would say abtar, abtar, ab, b. So they do this qalqala. We cover qalqala inshallah ta'ala some other time. So qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. For these 5, they said let's do qalqala there. Iqra, as opposed to iqra, they would say iqra, iqra, to create that continuity, to maintain that continuity without having to have a break, a pause. So iqra. So likewise, qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. These are the letters of qalqala. So there they would do qalqala. Iqra, matahara, matahara, abtar, abtar, mujtaba, mujtaba, idgham, idgham, as opposed to idgham, idgham, idgham. For Hamza, obviously you don't do anything. You have to have that small jerky pause there, which is the nature of Hamza, because they're from the throat and tongue is free. Normally after Hamza, you get another letter coming from somewhere else, not from the throat. But obviously, even if it does, they just make it easy, and that pause has no alternative, no other options to sort out. So they accept that because there's no other way. So for qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, they do qalqala, extra sound. For Hamza, they have no choice. For kaf and ta, they could have done qalqala there as well. But if they did, there will be very little distinction between qaf and kaf, and likewise pa and ta, because pa and ta come from the same makhraj. And qaf and kaf, they are very close to each other, both the base of the tongue. So it's going to be, if it was the case, it would have been a bit more complex and would have been difficult to distinguish the two. So they said, rather than doing on kaf and ta qalqala, they would say do hums, extra hums right at the end. So you would say ak, ak, only the breath sounds at the end. Likewise for ta, ak, ak. So they are shadid letter. You stop them suddenly, but then you release the breathing, the breath. For qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, you just release with the shadid letter. You release the sound. So you say ak, as opposed to with kaf you say ak. You do not say ak, that's wrong. If you say ak, sadrak, that's wrong. Sadrak, breath. Only the breath sound should come out. Tabbat, right at the end, only the breath sound should come out. So there are hums at the end, shadid from the beginning. So that's how they squared the circle, just to make it easy to read without having too much of a pause. Other than Hamza, where there was no way they could do anything about it. Okay. For Sheen, it was easy, obviously. If you say ash, sound and breath both continue. Now for Bainiya group, the middle group, the group which has both Shidda and Rekhwa, just to look at that. So for Al-Lam, if you say see, the sound continues. That should be Rekhwa. But the sound is not continuing from the actual makhraj, because the makhraj is the tip of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth, just behind the incisors, in the in the hard palate. So al, al. So the sound does not continue from the front of or the tip because the makhraj remains closed when you pronounce sakin lam. The sound actually continues from the sides, as you could see in the picture. So the sound is coming from the sides. So it's the shiddah from that angle, but sound is coming from the other side. That is why it's called bayniya. It has got both properties. Ra likewise. In the case of ra, you say ar. Here the tip of the tongue goes up the top, but there's in the center here a small gap, and that gap let the sound continue to come out. But the tongue is touching the hard palate. Ar, ar, ar. But the center of the tongue let the sound continue, so that there is extra passage there. Okay, so that's why we say that this is in betweener. And likewise for noon and meme, the sound continues from the nostril. You close your lips, but the sound continues from the nostril. Sound continues from the nose. So that is why they are bayniya. For ayn, you just pull your epiglottis back, and it takes a bit longer, so it doesn't stop suddenly. Rather, it takes slightly longer and then come out. So that's why it's a middle one. So na'budu, iyyaka na'budu. It's a normal time that it takes. It's slightly longer than shadid letter. It's not like if, ad, up. It's not like that. It doesn't stop quickly. It takes slightly longer. So that is why to say ayn or pronounce ayn with a jerk is wrong. So some people would say iyyaka na'budu, na'budu. That's wrong. This ayn sakina should be pronounced slightly with the lengthened makhraj. It means it has got a in-between quality, which is tawassut. So you would say iyyaka na'budu, 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 slightly prolonged. Okay. So these are lin awar, those 5 letters, which are pronounced with the, on one hand, shidda quality, on the other, rikhwa quality, and hence they are in between. And when you pronounce these letters, when you recite Quran, you take care of all those different categories. So the rikhwa has longest pronunciation duration. Bayniya is in between, and shidda has the shortest. So this is how, when you recite these, you pay attention to all of that. Let's read inshallah ta'ala this surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم بيني ميم نشرح لك شين and ha are rikhwa letter, so you just let them slightly longer. Nashrah, so don't do with the jerk. Alam nashrah lak, that's not right. Alam nashrah laka. Sad, this is with qalqala and shadid letter. Sadrak, sadrak, sadrak. The hums at the end. For dal you do qalqala, for kaf you do hums, kaf and ta. Sadrak, rak. ووضعنا middle عين ضعنا ووضعنا عنك وزرك with the prolongation there a little bit. Rak, stop suddenly, and then you do hums at the end. Wizrak الذي أنقض ظهرك. So the prolongation of ha is slightly longer than that of kaf. ظهرك, and then hums at the end. ورفعنا عين وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكْ. As opposed to, some people try to make this kaf into ka. ذِكْرَكْ. That's wrong. It has to be a shidda quality initially. ذِكْرَكْ. The hums at the end. You can't make all of that as hums. You can't say zik. No, it's zik. You suddenly stop and then do hums. ذِكْرَكْ. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Seen it? رخوة one. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانصَبْ. صَبْ قلقلة. وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. Ra is in between it and ba is shadid and you stop it. فَارْغَب. غَب. ما شاء الله. صدق الله العظيم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.